Hi, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and this is my husband Jim, and we are sitting here on Sunday about to talk about artificial intelligence. And we're very excited because today we actually have a guest on our podcast. We are welcoming Amy Mayer. I'd like to introduce her real quick. So she is actually a nationally renowned speaker and professional development guru. She began her educational journey as an English and foreign language teacher. She's now the CEO of FriEdTech, which is an education technology professional development company. They work with giants like Google and Adobe, and she actually operates in like 40 states and numerous countries around the world. So she is very, very good at her job and does a lot of professional development. She's also very passionate about fostering student and teacher engagement, and she promotes equity in education. Now, Amy has a new book that is out called Beyond Worksheets, which empowers K-12 educators with time-saving strategies, and she does include some generative AI in that book. Amy, welcome to the podcast. It's very great to have you. We're just now really starting to get into like having guests on. So you're one of like the first guests we've had on. So I'm looking forward to asking you questions.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we've known you for quite some time. We actually help you with AI training and stuff like that. So we're going to try to put you on the spot. I gave you some questions that we're going to be asking, and I'll let Jim kick us off.
I actually harass you constantly about AI, so you're not.
Thank you for teaching me nearly everything I know about it, Jim.
It's not really unusual, but we were trying to allow you to elaborate a little bit about what you have or have not done with it. So the first question was, have you found AI to be helpful in your day-to-day things that you do for your business?
Yeah, so I have found it to be really helpful. And lately I found an app I've been using, and for me, it has been truly a game changer. So it's called Super Normal. And I don't know, there may be all kinds of tools that do this, but it solved a problem that I specifically had. And I kept bugging everybody at work to try it. And now I think everybody's using it. And we're just using the free version. But to tell you the truth, if tomorrow they told me I had to pay $20 a month or not have it anymore, I'd be like, well, there goes another $20 a month. Guess I got to get rid of Netflix or something because I have to have it now. So what it does for me that I needed, I literally thought I was going to have to hire a person to do. So there are days when I have these back-to-back meetings and I don't have time to process the information from one meeting before the next one begins, and I cannot remember it. So I scribble all these messy notes on little pieces of paper and I write myself action items, and then still somebody comes back later and says, hey, you were going to send me this or whatever. Well, I haven't done it because I forgot or I couldn't read my notes or whatever. So Super Normal for me, I mostly do meetings in Google Meet. So it runs in Chrome, but there's a version of it that works in any platform, works Zoom, Teams, all that kind of stuff. And it transcribes the meeting. It puts down who says what. And then it also gives me this really dispassionate agenda. So I went to this kind of contentious meeting day before yesterday. And in that meeting, I said some stuff that I don't want to take it back, but I was pretty blunt with one of our partners, this particular industry giant partner who I guarantee everybody who listens to this has heard of. Not one of the ones you mentioned today, a different one. We found out that they have actually, all of their other partners have quit. We're the only partner they have left. We're the only ones who will still work with them. Right. So I thought I'm going to be really blunt with them about what's going on, because whatever anybody else said before they fired this partner, it didn't work. So I'm just going to really get like super clear about what we've experienced and why it's a problem for us. And I did. And I went back and looked at my Super Normal notes afterward. Such great notes. Like I could have emailed that to the, I don't know, whatever the leader of that company is, and felt good about it. It is really extraordinary. So that is my personal, like most useful, impactful way to me personally that I am using AI on a daily basis is Super Normal.
That's awesome. I know we had a meeting the other day and you immediately sent me the transcript. And
What'd you think?
not only did I find that it was just interesting, the transcript, but then the action items where it actually assigned to individual people. I think one of these things I had assigned because we were just having a general conversation was like, don't forget to make dinner that night or something. So I was like, wow, it catches everything. So I
Right.
thought that was great. What about your employees, Amy? Are they using AI? I mean, you're a business owner, so
Yes.
I mean, I know that you've embraced it, but what about the people that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of a different group of people than I think most folks have. My my team has really wholeheartedly embraced AI. In fact, we have a name that we call Chat GPT inside our company. He has a name. He's called Chet, Chet. That's what we call him because we find Chat GPT kind of like long to say. So like when somebody sends an email, we're going to say, "Did Chet help you write that?" And they're like, "Yep, you nailed it. It's Chet." So yes, I think everybody is using it. A way that it has saved us, I really don't know how many hours, is so Google has they have a bunch of different editions and licenses that you can buy now, and we have the Workspace for Education Plus edition in our domain, and that lets us do transcriptions of meetings, but it doesn't do what Supernormal does and provide an entire transcript or anything like that. So we're working on this project where part of the project is interviewing tons of people. Like we've done like maybe, I don't know, 30 to 50 hour long interviews. That is a ton of data, right? That's so much data. And it's all the same questions, all about the same topic that we're making this tool for Google with all of this data we're collecting. And before AI, became a thing that we could access, we would have had to use our human brains to really comb through all of that data to try to figure out like where are the overlaps, what is the consensus. It just would have been incredibly time consuming. And now, after we do an interview, we have the transcript already. We take the transcript, we put it in, we say, we ask some standardized questions about that information, and we're able to assimilate it super quickly. So it's just been such a time saver. And then Elizabeth was one of the first people who used it. So Elizabeth is our large scale projects director, and she has to determine credit for people in Mississippi. And the way education credit works in that state is really different. I'm not aware of it working this way anywhere else in the entire world, but in Mississippi, you cannot earn a CEU, which is a credit unit you need, and you literally have to have it to keep your job. Some districts will non-renew you automatically if you don't reach a certain threshold. But in order to apply for a CEU, you have to reach 5 hours in a learning experience. It doesn't have to be contiguous, but we cannot submit for less than 5 hours. So this created like a huge workflow problem for us, that we were constantly having to verify that people had met this threshold before we could give them the documentation they need to apply for this credit. And it's taken very seriously in this state. It's not like in Texas where it's kind of a joke. So she started using AI initially, taking the spreadsheet data and dumping it in, and saying, who's reached the 5 hours. Well, at first she was spending a lot of time like making sure that what the tool told her was correct. And as she used it, she gained confidence and understood that, yeah, and this is also saving me like a day a week at times, depending on how many different applications we're getting, like what time of year it is and all that. So that has been intensely time saving as well. So yeah, I think everybody on our team is using it. We're using it for session titles. We're not always going with what it says, but it's giving us ideas that we can use to create. I mean, session titles for us can determine whether we have a packed room at a conference or we have 5 people there. And sometimes we've spent, a big part of our marketing budget to be at an event. If nobody's in that room, like it's literally lost, it lost all impact for us. So those types of things, session titles, session descriptions, are really important that we get that right. And it's like having another really smart brain to work on that with. So we've used it in so many different ways.
I like what you said about how she first started using it, because I told you, I had a discussion recently with a hostel. We call them hostels that are in our some of our trainings. and it was about
Oh,
the
I was thinking HOSTEL,
no, these are styles. These are
HOSTILE, hostiles. Yes, gotcha.
they come into our trainings with this preconceived notion that AI is going to run the universe or run the creative thought of the entire people
Yes,
in the United States, whatever. And what you said is that she spent a great deal of time at the beginning becoming less skeptical. Over time, she began to trust it. That's what
yes,
we tell people all the time. I mean, what she did is what I think is the most natural human response to even interacting with another human. You don't
right.
necessarily trust someone, or you shouldn't, as soon as they walk in the door, which is what I said to the person that was so hostile, was that you don't know me. Why would you trust
Why
what
would
I
you
say?
trust anything I said? Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So I like the way she did that because that is exactly the way I think any new tool should be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I
Absolutely.
totally agree.
Healthy skepticism. It's not a bad thing.
Yes, right.
It's
You got
not.
to prove it to yourself that this works and that it's better than you. In this case, it's better than us at doing this work. And once we prove that to ourselves, well, then it doesn't make any sense for us to keep doing it if the tool is better at doing it than we are.
Sounds like your margin of error has got to be pretty low too for the specific
Yes,
Mississippi.
right. It's super for these folks, like it's very, very high stakes for them. And if we're going to get complaints or people who are unhappy, it's generally going to be around this issue and in that state because it is so high stakes for people. So, yeah, we really can't mess it up. Um, and we especially can't mess it up in a way that keeps them from getting credit that they need to keep their job. Like we would just feel terrible if something
Mm-hmm.
happened to one of our learners because we didn't count right or something. Yeah,
That
it's
would be
it's high stakes.
it's a lot of pressure on that person to
Right.
do stuff to really.
Exactly.
So that's understandable.
Exactly.
So, speaking of education in Mississippi and all the different schools that you go into, how has it changed since you started doing the trainings on AI or, have you seen the attitude or have you seen the attitude
How about hostiles?
of
People
artificial
hostile.
intelligence in education? I mean, how are they reacting to it?
Well, I may be about to give you a lot more data on that because I'm doing this first keynote speech, and it is to math teachers in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Day after tomorrow, it's Tuesday. So I hope that I do not have any more data to add to our data set of hostiles after that. I feel like I've carefully designed it to not have that result. Most of the people that we have worked with on AI are taking our online course. So we have a two-part online course that is designed by Daryl Legaspi, who you guys know. So what we're seeing is the evaluations of that course that people are giving us after they have experienced it. So it's not really a good measure of the way people feel when they're coming in because we don't really get data on that, but we know how they feel when they leave. And that's what we focus on is how do people feel about this when they leave? Because we get a lot of people in our learning experiences who are not there by choice. They're there because somebody said you have to go do this or, they have to get those CEUs or whatever. And that's why they're in the chair with us today, not because they chose to be. So the when they leave data is super important. And what we're hearing from people is that they have really changed their attitude. They see it as a tool that can help them, but cannot replace them. They just are having a lot more positive feeling around it once they see some use cases that actually apply to them and what they do. So overwhelmingly positive evaluations from that online course that people are taking. And that gives me hope. The other folks that I've addressed directly about it have been at conferences, like the three of us were at TCEA together. And I think there are a lot fewer hostiles there because they're self-selecting. They chose to be at the conference. They generally were not forced to come there, and they wanted to go. So usually they had to put in some sweat in order to get there, and then they also had to put in something in order to get into whatever room they're in where they're doing that learning. So that every step of that, you know, decreases the likelihood that we're going to have those people who are just really unhappy to be in the room with us today and want to blame us or the technology for, whatever's going on in their life or whatever emotional state they're in at the moment. And I'm hoping that my audience next week is much the same. Like this conference is kind of pitched as like, yeah, you can do some professional learning, but also we're going to give you plenty of time to sit by the pool. So I'm hoping everybody comes in really, chill and relaxed. So, but I think people are really worried about it. And I pulled something up today to say to you, because I think it's really, in the literally months I've been working on this keynote speech, I came up with one thing that I think really nails what educators are feeling about this and why they're so uneasy about it, because people are not doing a good job articulating what they're saying. Is what teachers are saying about it is, I'm worried about cheating. That's what comes out of their mouth.
All the time.
Yeah. Right. But I think there's a translation for that feels a lot better for teachers. And I'm curious to test this, and I'm going to be testing this on my audience next week. So when teachers talk about cheating, there's this feeling around that it is kind of a mean and small thing to be worried about. So I have two things to say to them: is anytime kids can cheat, you can cheat too. And that feels a little better. So if it's doing their homework, let it do your homework. That's kind of an intriguing idea. And I'm going to talk to them about how they can use it to help them with what they don't want to do. But the other thing is this, and I made a statement of it. I'm going to leave it up on the screen for a good long time, and I'll say it today, because I think this is what teachers want to hear, what they need to hear, and then what they need to turn around and be able to articulate. If things go my way, people will take out their phone and take a picture of this. And next time this topic comes up, they're going to pull up that picture and they're going to say, this is why I'm concerned. As a professional educator who cares about pedagogy, I worry about loss of critical thinking, lack of productive struggle, and decrease in useful cognition. And I think that feels a lot better to a person who has dedicated their life to the science of teaching and learning, which is pedagogy, than saying, I don't like it because kids are using it for cheating, which feels kind of mean and small and not very thoughtful. But unfortunately, a lot of educators have not been given a lot of floor space to talk about their profession. It is a profession that's really diminished in the public eye, and especially right now. And so we blurt out things like, I don't like it because kids are using it for cheating, because we know we've only got 5 seconds. People are not going to listen to us if we try to talk about this. So what do I say that really nails the problem? And that's what they're saying. I don't really think that's not the emotion that I hear coming from teachers when they talk about it. It's this: loss of critical thinking, lack of productive struggle, decrease in useful cognition. And I'm hoping that really feels true to these math teachers who I'm going to be in front of next week, and that feels like a better way to explain their concern than what they have been saying.
I do have one interesting piece of information for you that I was going to tell you before.
Tell me.
Before your keynote, there's studies, comparisons they do between different models. I told you recently that Claude 3 has been the big news. And I didn't know that Google Gemini actually rates higher, I believe, than GPT 4.0 does on math.
Really?
So if you're going to a math conference, it seemed like it was relevant. If I can find the statistic thing, I'll I'll send it to you just so you can.
Have you found that to be true in your work? Have you seen impressive math things?
I don't use it for math that much.
Yeah.
When I started using Google Gemini, it was because it had really good ability to take apart images. I'd send it an image and say, what is this? Or how do you do this? It was really good at it. I think it's still decent at it, but then everything else got a lot better. I haven't even tested Claude to see how good it is. But most people don't think of it as a math tool. Most math teachers don't think of it as a math tool. I mean, in Maurie and I's experience, the people we talk to mostly are people that teach humanities, or they teach social studies.
Right.
English.
People care about it because it's language based.
It's a language model, so you don't tend to think of it as a math or science model. I have been sending some stuff to our math and science teachers lately, especially the science teachers, because it's doing some pretty incredible stuff. I think that the video Maurie and I watched recently with Saul Kahn, and he was talking about using it as a tutor for his stuff in math.
I have that in my presentation. I have that video of him. Is it the triangle video? Is that the one you watch where he's looking at the? Yeah, I have that. I thought that was really intriguing too.
They haven't released all the features yet to the general public that allows that particular paradigm to happen. But I think that's a great paradigm. And it's a great way to to introduce the idea that it's useful for more than just, language arts and, writing papers or emails, whatever?
So there's something I need to send you. There is, he's actually a doctor from Stanford University. He's a researcher, and he just gave a testimony before some federal committee of some sort. I'll send you the video. The research that they've done at Stanford about cheating with generative AI is actually negligible.
I have this video too.
Yeah, it's like kids who have cheated are going to cheat.
They were already cheating.
They were already doing it. It's just another tool. I mean, before it was, looking off your neighbor's paper, it was buying the test, it was using Google, it was plagiarism, so what you need to do is you need to look at the critical thinking. You need to look at, all the stuff that you were just talking about, and how are we going to change the delivery of the lesson? Because I think that change in delivery should have happened with the invent of the web, not with the invent of
like it's almost like we should have already talked about this and made a bunch of changes, and but we didn't do any of that most of the time. And I had a great conversation. You guys know Mike Wallace, and Mike is like an amateur professional mathematician. He loves math. His kids are all in advanced math. He does math for fun. The guy loves math. And so when I'm talking to math people or thinking about math, I always talk to Mike about it because he loves the subject so much. And so we had a good conversation last week about how to overcome these things that teachers are worried about, that we're kind of putting in a bucket and calling cheating, but that it's a little more nuanced than that. But he said, wouldn't flipped classroom be good for this? Like, I learn at home, I practice in the room. I told him, like, I think that's brilliant. Couldn't really fully support flipped classroom the last time it came around. I just didn't see enough upsides for most subject areas. And most subject areas, the research shows students aren't benefiting from homework. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to be making a lot of work outside the classroom. But math is different. Math practice, we know that works, and we know that helps students to a certain degree. So there's some evidence-based stuff there. Flipped classroom now flipped classroom could be really meaningful. Like, I don't care if ChatGPT can do your math homework if you can't do it. Like, it literally doesn't matter to me that you turned in a piece of paper that looks like you did something. I'm really trying to look at your thinking. That's the point of it. So having students doing that thinking and talking about it and discussing it and working with the teacher inside the classroom now, and then doing the learning or whatever way that learning is happening at home, that really makes sense to me. And I think that's a valuable conversation to kind of return to.
I agree.
So before we run out of time, because we're going to get to my favorite part of all these conversations we always have, which is the future. You just talked about something that's potentially future change. What do you see the biggest impacts in the future? How long do you think it'll take, that kind of stuff, for AI to have any significant impact?
It's really hard to say because schools are so slow to change and adopt new methodologies. As wonderful as I think teachers are some of the most change resistant people in the workforce, and the system makes you more change resistant the longer you stay in it for most people, because changing is not rewarded in education. The more change you're willing to take on, the more you're asked to do. And generally, the changes have served no benefit to anyone. And so you're in this constant cycle of change that after years you notice is not benefiting anyone. It is change for the sake of change because somebody at central office told you had to do it a new way. They didn't tell you why, or there was no reason why. So it makes you more and more change resistant the more years you stay inside the system. So with that said, I think that there are some progressive teachers out there who are changing already and will be on the cutting, bleeding edge of this, and their students will get the benefit of it right away. I think that the change curve in education is a long curve. So 3 to 5 years for significant change. And I mean, like, the average teacher will be using AI in some kind of way, like probably integrated into a software that the school district has purchased in 3 to 5 years. That is my prediction.
Maury and I talked about this today. We were betting that you were going to pick 3 to 5 years.
What do you guys? Is that what you guys think too?
That's what Maury's been saying almost from the time we started doing this was 3 to 5 years.
What you said about the resistance to change and the reason, new principal comes to the campus and all of a sudden,
everything's different.
Everything's different. I mean, we had one come in one time that decided we couldn't put posters on the walls. Didn't want any posters on the walls. Distractions and stuff. And so I understand exactly what you're saying. They're afraid to make any changes because they know that no matter what they do within a couple of years, you actually had a teacher tell you that one.
She actually told me that the best thing to do is slow roll everything because that way, by the time in another 6 months to a year, they're going to change their mind anyway.
Back again. Yep.
So she said, whatever you do, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to slow roll it. She retired a few years ago. But
what about new teachers though? Something I'm finding kind of interesting is that whenever we have a teacher that comes into our district that is brand new to the teaching profession, I am surprised at the lack of technological skills that they have compared to somebody who's been there for 10 years.
Yep. I see exactly the same thing. So in my last public school district I worked in, where I was a staff development director, we had the highest turnover rate in the state at the time. It was like 25%, which is not that high anymore, but back then it was super high. And I was in charge of all new staff development. So I had like a 3-year-long program that people went through, a retention program. I mean, it was a big part of my job. And everybody has this misconception that new teachers, young teachers, are better at integrating technology, that they know more about technology, but that is not the truth at all. There's no truth in that. Younger, newer to the profession teachers know more about using technology for their personal use and even less about using it as they know how to do stuff on their phone, but they do not relate that to teaching and learning. And there is no relationship for them unless they're directly taught. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing colleges and universities do a good job at all of teaching my field, which is instructional technology. People are just completely ignorant of what meaningful technology integration in the classroom is, even if they are fresh out of college.
Well, hopefully artificial intelligence can help change that, because now instead of asking Siri or whatever, they can just ask an AI and maybe get some good answers. Anyway, we are running out of time. So I really do appreciate you being on the podcast today.
I didn't think I could keep talking for 30 minutes.
Oh,
I told you I can talk a blue streak.
You did tell me. Thank you.
Anyway, really, really appreciate your being on, and good luck. I'm assuming you're leaving on a plane trip and then you're going to be giving a keynote. Please make sure.
I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Yes, let us know how it goes.
Thanks, all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Once again, this is Maurie with my husband, Jim, and we are AI in Action. Every Sunday, we sit down and talk about artificial intelligence. We would again like to thank Amy Mayer for being on our podcast today. You guys need to remember that she does have a book out there called Beyond Worksheets, Creative Ways to Teach and Engage Students. Now, you can find this book all sorts of different locations. The best way to find it is probably to go to her website, which is FriEdTechnology. FriEdTechnology. FRIED. That's right. It is FriEdTechnology.com. And you can just go there /book and find all the different locations that you can find Beyond Worksheets. Thank you again for listening. We hope you have a marvelous rest of the week.